Hello folks, and welcome back to NA Turbo. So I thought today I'd actually do a video of my new daily. Some of you might know my previous daily was actually a personal leased SUV. Yes, I know people hate them, and I'm probably going to get lots of derogatory comments for having one, but I can't help it. I do love SUVs. And particularly I had a Volkswagen Tiguan, which was, in my mind, one of the best. But anyway, needs must. So during the chip shortage and everything, I was fairly lucky to sell that back to VW and actually gain money on it, which was something that doesn't happen on modern cars very often. But moving on, I needed something more sort of permanent that I could use, because that then left me with just the project cars that you can see sort of peeking in shot over there. So this is a 08 plate Jag XF that my brother had, and he stopped driving because he was commuting longer distances, and being a petrol, it's not that frugal, but we'll get to that in a little while. So I just thought I'd introduce you to it, and apologies for the slightly shaky camera today. My gimbal's decided that it isn't going to play ball, so I'm back to old schooling it with just my hands. But yeah, so this is an 08 Jaguar XF 3-litre V6 petrol. My brother bought this from the third owner just over 2 years ago now, and it's been a 3-owner car in total. One was the dealership, because it's a very early XF on an 08 plate. We think, looking back at the history, it was a car that was originally registered sort of up north, Newcastle Gateshead way, and was given to dealers just before the launch. So it's got some unusual options that a standard model wouldn't have on it, but it's been spec'd with. So we can then see from the history, and there is mounds of paperwork to back this car up, that the second owner then bought this car from a dealer down in Gloucestershire, to the point of they've even got the sort of invoices of what she paid for it. And then she had it all that time, and it was then bought by the third owner, a couple of years ago, who used it for going to things like France, because they're ultimate sort of motorway cruisers. My brother then bought it because he wanted something modern, but that was sort of nice for him to tootle around in to work. But as I say, he's moved jobs now, so it was no longer economical. So hence how I've ended up with a beast, because my work at the moment is currently working from home. So, the sort of MPG figures and things don't matter as much currently for me. But we'll just have a bit of a look around it. So, as I say, it's a 3-litre premium model with this metallic paint that was actually, I believe, on the Premium Pluses. Also, it has uprated alloys to these 18s here. Now, this is a car that's been used. It's done 120,000, so, the alloys are not in perfect condition. But one of the reasons I bought it off my brother was the second owner, the lady who bought it from a Jaguar dealer down in Gloucestershire, spent no expense spared on it. This car went to everything. Went to Jaguar for everything, and I mean everything from bulbs to tyres. There's receipts for thousands of pounds for tyres changed and things like that. So it was very looked after. She even sort of had a slight nudge by the look of it on the rear. It was taken back to Jaguar for that fixing. So it's a car that the history is a folder full, to the point of it's got the brochure with all the options ticked off on it. So my brother then had it. He's looked after it in just the same way, albeit he's a welder and mechanic, so he serviced it himself, but he's used things like new brake pads. It's had green stuff, discs, and EBC groove discs and green stuff pads on the front. It's always had proper Jaguar oil filters. It's had the proper specification oil, which costs a fortune. It's Castrol. But yeah, so I sort of took it on because I'm getting to that age now where I wanted something wafty, something that's just a doddle to drive, and always liked these. I was looking previously at the facelifted generation, but then I decided I wanted, because I got a good deal off my brother for this and I desperately needed a car, so the first gen it was. So we'll have a bit of a look around it. So if I take down the size, now the XF was a car that was actually sort of developed under Ford's ownership, and as many people that know me, I am far from a Ford fan. Perhaps some people think that means I hate Fords. I don't. I just don't get the hype on some of them. So yeah, it's a car that was developed under Ford, but I think actually, and I'm not saying this just because I own it, they've done a good job of it, and they've kept the Ford parts bin special bits to kind of a minimum, which I like. I remember the days of the Aston Martins when Ford owned that, and you were getting an Aston Martin and see an Escort heater switch. So, you know, you spend hundreds of thousands of pounds on a car and then you see a 20p heater switch from a Ford Escort, not something you want to see, but they tend to have sort of kept it to a minimum with the XF. This car has platforms shared with other Fords in the States as well. In fact, this 3-litre V6 petrol it's currently running, I believe, is a Ford-derived engine. And actually, apart from it being ferociously expensive to tax, and we'll go into that in a little while, the noise it makes, the way it pulls, is actually really good. And like I say, I'm no Ford fan. So yeah, we'll just sort of have a bit of a look around it. You can see Ford influences, so the indicators in the mirror sort of say to me a bit Ford Focus. Don't quote me on that, but they're sort of, you know, sort of looking at Focus of a similar age. If we walk round the side again, I love this red colour, and I'll try and flash up the actual colour name because I do forget. But I always think the XF is it's a mean looking car for those of us that like that sort of thing. So you've got the actual non-fake twin pipes, and I'll insert a clip of the car starting so you can hear that a bit better. The engine sounds absolutely gorgeous, and it's a standard box. It's not been messed with or fiddled with in any way or shape or form. So again, apologies for the slightly shaky camera, but we'll go around this way so you can just get this side view of it from this side. So I think all in all, it's a very pretty, very handsome looking car, really. The boot's big enough, so if I just open this, apart from my messy boot that's in there, the boot does go quite a far way back. You can just sort of see the engine oil I chucked in there from when I was doing the service. Apologies for my messy boot. At the back, which you might not be able to see, it's actually got split folding rear seats as well, so you can put the seats down, which is very unusual for a saloon car. Especially in 08, I know many sort of BMWs that was an option if they did it at all. So yeah, that's the boot. We'll just go round and have a look. Now, this is one of the things I do admit I hate about this car, and I think a few YouTubers are saying it's a British engineered car for all wants and purposes, built in Britain. And they put the bonnet catch on the passenger side. That is just unforgivable, Jaguar. So the bonnet catch is actually down here rather than it being on the driver's side of the car. So big fail there, Jaguar. It's a British designed car, it should be on the driver's side. So if I can do this one-handed, we'll flip the bonnet up. But even from the front, I think, you know, it's, as a car, it's fairly good looking. I love the grille. And yeah, I think it's just a very handsome car. So I'll try and pull this up one-handed if I can find the catch now. Somewhere, he says. There we go. So, opening up the bonnet, there you'll see the Ford-derived 3-litre V6. So in this sort of tune, it makes, I believe, 240 horse, somewhere around there. Yeah, this car's done 120,000 miles, and I think that's one of the things. Ford have actually made a really good job of this engine. It's well designed, it's proven. This car's done 120,000 miles. It flew through its last MOT on emissions. The only thing that's failed on it, literally after I got it MOT'd, and I was so chuffed it flew through, was the water pump, which you might not be able to see, but he's buried all the way down here in the engine bay. So that took myself and my dad to change it, and was needless to say, a bit of a pig. But because this engine's chain, it's not cam belt, you don't change the water pump as often as you would on a car that has a cam belt. So this water pump had been on since new, so 20 something odd years, and done 120,000 miles, and it started leaking from the casing. So I did ponder on whether to go the cheap route, because I always like a cheap route and buying off the shelf water pump. But having looked at how you do it and having a look at what you have to take off to get to it, which was the rad, basically all the shroud had to come off. Luckily you could just move the rad out of the way so you didn't lose all the water. Things that were buried right at the bottom, like the car's exhaust gas recirculation valve, had to come off and be unplugged. This sort of expansion bottle had to be taken off and moved to the side. All the air system had to be removed. So I decided I'd phone Jaguar and see how much an original equipment one was. And to be honest, it wasn't that bad. It was somewhere in the region of £160. And unlike the off-the-shelf one, which was half the casting effectively, this was the full-blown water pump, casting and everything. So literally you just tuck it off and change the whole unit. And my reasoning for doing that was it's lasted 120,000 miles and 20 odd years, being an original equipment one, and it is in such an awful place to change. I never wanted to do it again. So my cheapness sort of went out the window, and I decided to fork out the £160 and put an original equipment one in. Again, Jaguar spares. It's actually, when you open the box and look on the side on it, it says Fomoco, which is Ford Motor Company parts, so it's a Ford water pump. But I got it from Jaguar directly, and literally 2 days in the middle of the so-called supply shortage we all had. So, you know, that was really, really good in terms of getting it. So that's fitted. It's been a fair few hundred miles now since, so she's all watertight and everything. But yeah, that was a bit of a pain, needless to say. But in terms of mechanical things, that's all that's really gone wrong with it in the time my brother's had it, which was coming up to 2 years, and in the few months I've had it. These engines, as I say, are pretty reliable. The only thing that tends to go on them is the exhaust sort of sensors, lambda sensors, which have been replaced by the previous owner, so we didn't have to do anything like that with it. But, you know, it's pretty tried and tested engine. So, yeah, sort of very pleased with it compared to a previous car that my brother had, which was a 2013 Astra. GTC, which came from a dealer and had been on a Motability scheme, so it had been perfectly serviced the whole time. The things that were breaking on that car at 4 years old were just shocking. It had shock absorbers go, it had a line to the turbo, because it was a turbocharged car, made out of plastic, that went. It had a fuel line back to the return of the tank that was plastic, and that broke. And that was all on a car that had done 48,000 miles, if that, and 4 years old. So, you know, this car is on its original suspension. You know, all the underpinnings are all the same. And it's just had, you know, what you could say, a few consumables. The only thing that my brother has replaced was that expansion bottle, because due to the heat and things, it cracked. But again, he got that from Jaguar, and that was fairly cheap. The bonnet catch has gone a bit sticky, but again, we've got a new one of those, again from Jaguar, something like £60. So that was pretty cheap. So yeah, I'm sort of liking the ownership at the moment. We'll have a look inside and show you some of the cool features, but just in terms of this engine and the economy, it's where it falls down a bit. So you know, on a run up the motorway in the horrible sort of average speed camera zones that we all got at the moment at sort of 50, 60, I'll get between 33 and nearing 34 miles to the gallon out of it. Around town and in places sort of fairly close to where I live, like Milton Keynes, for example, it's much less. You're lucky if you get in the 20s. 17 is a number you see quite often. And actually, when the car went for its MOT, it had been sitting with the engine running, and I got back in it and noticed it was doing 7 miles to the gallon. So that's where it falls down. The only other thing where it falls down, which the MPG I can kind of put up with, and it does run on the new E10 fuel as well, which is really good because they sold a lot of these in the United States of America, so that's been running on the E10 for a while, so thankfully that wasn't an issue. But where it does fall down is the British road tax. This engine, being quite an old one, is quite dirty in terms of CO, even though the car itself has got 2 catalytic converters. This costs £500 a year to tax, and if your jaws have just dropped to the floor like mine did when I first saw my brother taxing it, yeah, £500, you know. I used to work for an online car company. You could get a Mustang, a new Mustang, that would be much less than that to tax a year. So yeah, that's where it falls down. Consequently, I only tax it for 6 months at a time at £300 because my jaw hits the floor each time I go to do it. But yeah, those are the only 2 things that really bump up the running costs on it, are the tax and the MPG. Again, as I say, I'm not using it that much, so MPG is not so much of a worry, but the tax really does sort of hurt. So we'll just drop the bonnet down and then we'll go and have a look inside the car. Okay, join me in a second to have a look at the interior. So here we are in the interior of the XF, and it's actually such a nice place to be. This one's slightly different. My brother's upgraded this sort of centre console trim from what would have been this darker wood to the R spec, so it's this nicer sort of, I guess you could say, carbon fibre effect. But it lightens up the car a fair bit. It was all sort of this sort of darkish wood before, which tends, even though it's got the lighter leather seats, make it a bit dark in here. So in terms of equipment, this is actually, for its age, a fairly well spec'd car. So if I zoom over to the steering wheel here, we've got cruise control here on the right. Fortunately, it's not active cruise control. That was an option, but this one just has regular cruise. You've also got the controls here on the steering wheel for the phone, so it does have Bluetooth built into it as well. It's also got the controls on these roller style buttons for selecting up and down on your audio tracks. So this one's actually got, in terms of audio, if we pan over here a little way, it's all built in. It has got a 6-disc CD auto changer. Unfortunately, it's not got a USB, which is what a lot of my music's on, but you can get the unit put in and coded. It's just a lot of work. So all I've been doing at the moment is literally just copying my MP3s back onto CDs again. And it's all played through this sort of Jaguar Center infotainment system, which is touchscreen for the age as well. So it also doesn't have DAB, which I'm used to, but my brother's actually got one of these, and I've stole it off him if I can find it. One of these sort of pure highway DAB systems that sort of affixes up onto the windscreen there, and just connects via a normal FM. It's not perfect, but it's good enough for now. I might upgrade the system at some point, but I'm not sure how long I'm keeping this car, to be totally honest. And if I do start travelling more with work, it would need to obviously go to be more fuel efficient, so a diesel or something of that, which they did do. So yeah, in terms of the interior, excuse my broken or partially broken gimbal there, it is this very sort of sumptuous, gorgeous sort of cream leather, which transfers down onto sort of everything you touch here. You've got sort of cubby holes here, excuse my mess. You've also got cubby holes here which shut, and over here as well, which shut down. Then if we pan over to the doors, you could get many options on this car in terms of audio. So Bowers and Wilkins system upgraded. This has just got the standard Jaguar one in, but it's actually really, really good. Again, you've got the sort of soft touch down here, and this is sort of harder cover plastic, but to match. And on this particular one, it's got the sort of dark sort of red. You probably can't see in this light steering wheel, and dash as well. So I'll try and spin you around to the back without making you too sick, but as you can see, the back seats are pretty much the same again. I don't think anybody's ever sat in them, to be totally honest, so they are like new. And as we spin back round, One of the main things for this car that is quite fun is your automatic gear selector is on this round dial here, with your PR and D there, and sports mode as well. It's got the electronic handbrake, which this car does actually need new rear discs and pads because they are the originals, which can be a pain because you need the correct equipment to reset the automatic handbrake, but I'm hoping my local tyre centre will be able to do that for me, because I want to actually get the same green stuff EBC discs for the back that are on the front for this car come next year. So yeah, the interior is very nice. Jaguars of old used to be, to use the phrase, quite old manish inside. I think this has been brought right up to date, to be honest, and it's got quite a few clever features as well. So you've got dual zone climate. It has the Ford painted quick clear windscreen, which you won't be able to see the lines on it, but the buttons for this are just based down here, along with the other ones as well. So that is one Ford thing I've always liked, and I thought every car should have, because it saves you getting out and scraping it, and on a cold morning I'm lazy, so you just get in, hit that button, and it'll defrost just as the rear windscreen would. So that's pretty good. We'll have a look at the car's sort of party tricks at the in a second. So being an automatic, you have to put your foot on the clutch to start it. Then if I can get it to do it, you will see, out as if by magic comes the gear selector up here, and if you noticed, again, the vents all electronically open and close. So your gear selector is down here. If I zoom in, again, you've got your PR and D, and you literally just get into each section, just twizzle the gear selector, and then you do the same to get into sport mode. You just push down and turn, and that puts it in sport mode. Then again, you can just release that and turn it back into park in the centre. So you've also got your buttons down here for traction control and things like that as well. Moving back up, this is the Jaguar infotainment system. So it's quite an early iteration of it, so it's a bit dim-witted on the touch presses, but this is 2008, so I can forgive it that. And again, you've got most of your options in here, so if you touch on here, this will then go in and you can select your dual zone climate, whether you want it on face, whether you want it on automatic. It's also got built in, if we go back down here, so you've got your phone system there, which will take you down if my phone was switched on to Bluetooth. It's not at the moment, and that is your Bluetooth system. We go back again. This car's also got one of the options was navigation. So if we just agree to that, it's quite low res, to be honest. The actual original disc that came with the car was from 2008. Via the wonderful world of eBay, I've actually managed to get a 2018 disc. That was the last year they did updates for this car for it, which, to be honest, it's good enough. My friend lives in a fairly new estate in Hinckley in Leicestershire. That is found via the postcode search on here, so it's up to date enough. And to be honest, if I need any more, I just use the Google Maps on my phone. Fortunately, it hasn't got things like CarPlay or Android Auto, because that was well before this sort of system. But between the two, it works quite well, to be honest. And you've got all your different menus, so you can put your stored locations as you would with a normal system on it. So if we go back, this just takes you back to the standard screen that you see on there. So yeah, I think it's quite smart. And if we pan across here, you'll see the dials which come up in blue. You'll see the average fuel economy it's been doing today. So this is a combination of motorway, dual carriageways, and single track roads. So a 3 litre V6, 25.9, not too bad. And you have various other options on your stalk here, which you can pan through the trip on it. So it gives you, as most cars do, your average speed. So the car's done 120,000 miles at the minute. It has got all the things you'd expect, your range and things like that as well. Just hiding behind the steering wheel there, if I could take you in, it's even got flappy paddles, so if you fancy being Michael Schumacher for a little while, you can do that through there. It's also got auto lights and auto wipers, so you can set those and it comes on automatically. But I think in terms of a place to sit, it's not the Jaguars of old. It's not, again, without being offensive and to use the term old man, it's brought it up to date to a place that I'm quite happy to sit in and be in. So yeah, and I think the sort of blue dials is very, very sort of in keeping with car. The other thing this car's got as well, which is slightly unusual, if I pan you to the wing mirrors there, you'll just be able to see the orange lights. That's blind spot monitoring. So this car, even as far back as 2008, one of the options that was ticked because it was a dealer car and they wanted to sell it was blind spot monitoring, which works. The wing mirrors are also auto dimming and tinting. So if anybody comes up behind you with main beam on, those will dim down. It's also got auto dimming rear view mirror as well. And even things like, if we look up here, if I can get without reflection, touch sensitive lights, So this is stuff we're now only seeing on 2018 onwards cars. So for its time, this was very, very well equipped. And I can see why somebody bought it. You've got sort of down here as well, all your usual bank of electric mirror switches. It has got folding mirrors that shut on the keys. As I say, the car is a good car, but there's foibles with every car. And to be honest, this one being an early model has a few. So you won't see it now, but this car has a digital fly-by-wire system for the speedo and everything. And if you can remember sort of back in the old days of speedo cables, you used to sometimes get a jitter where the cable was wearing. This has an electronic jitter, believe it or not. So Jaguar have actually managed to engineer in something that only a cable operated throttle would have, which amuses the heck out of me, to be honest. And speaking to my brother who's researched it, it's something that Jaguar are aware of. A few cars went back for its sort of fixing and they changed the gauges and the pods out, and the ultimate conclusion was it just does it. Luckily, on this car, it's very minimal, so only every so often do you notice it. My brother says when he was researching, looking at some of the forums, some of the other cars, it was like this. Then they went in and had the gauges and pods and everything changed, and it came out sort of, as I call it, dickering much worse. So I'm quite happy to leave that alone. It works, it's fine, it just has a slight quirk. There is a few software issues on it. I visited a friend recently who has sort of quite a steep driveway, sort of went to pull up into it and it managed to stall. How? Because unless you're doing an emergency stop and it's for safety, automatics are not supposed to stall. So yeah, quite how it managed to do that, I'm not sure. There has been a few sort of electronic glitches. So one day I was in a car park, I'd put my foot on the brake as you do normally to start the car. Obviously didn't press it for enough, but the car still started, which normally they're not supposed to do for safety reasons without your foot on the brake. But what that meant is I then put the car into drive using the dial, but it just flashed at me and wouldn't go anywhere. And it took me a few minutes to figure out what was going on, and being an ex-IT professional, I went for the old approach of turn it off and turn it back on again. And that worked. It reset itself. So yeah, I think being a very early car, there is a few software glitches around. And that's not just saying that's to Jaguar. I've had sort of later cars from Volkswagen Group and other manufacturers that have had software glitches as well. I think that's just the new thing of modern cars effectively. So yeah, I'm sort of very happy with this, and I just wanted to sort of take the time to show you around it. I'm not a Jaguar XF expert by any stretch of the imagination, so some of the facts about specs and things I might be slightly off on, but it's what is going to be my new daily for at least the sort of next year to 2 years. So I just wanted to really introduce it onto the fleet. So yeah, I shall sort of say goodbye in a few moments. I will just do its party trick one more time. So if we turn the car off there, obviously you get the come home, leaving home lights, which illuminates all the footwells and everything as well for you. So again, you have the start stop, which if it'll do it, I'm not sure if it will now, normally sort of pulsates when it's on at a certain point. Typically it's not wanting to do it, but the other thing, again, just showing these vents, so you put it onto ignition, and the vents will automatically motor up. So again, something quite clever for this year of car. And then when you actually do go to start it with obviously your foot on the brake, that is when out of nowhere comes the gear selector. So yes, I'm quite sad and I'll never get bored of that. So yeah, that's really introducing the Jaguar XF to you. So I'll let you know sort of how we go, if anything comes up on it. But I just wanted to take the time to sort of introduce it, as it's going to be my new daily. And other than the MPG and the tax, I'm very happy. So I'll leave that for now. Just say thanks for watching. Do like and subscribe if you like the channel. We'll have hopefully some more tinkering of cars coming up. Probably mostly on Ryan's car, because touch wood, I'm touching my head, that the Supra is behaving himself, old Hannibal, for the moment, as is Rado the Corrado. So yeah, it'll probably mostly be on Ryan's cars, the Renault 21, the Rover SD1, and the Hillman as well. So yeah, thank you for watching. Do take care, and see everybody soon.